So in honor of Star Wars The Force Awakens coming out in about 10 days, I decided that I would go ahead and do a Road to Force Awakens series where I review all of the Star Wars movies right after watching them. Well, I shouldn't say all the Star Wars movies because I'm just going to review the original trilogy because I don't really feel like watching the prequels. So, like I said, I'm going to review all the movies right after watching them. So I literally just watched Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. So let me go ahead and get right into my review. So it was really great going back and watching this movie, mainly because every time I go back and I watch the original trilogy, I usually just watch an Empire Strikes Back because it's the strongest of the original trilogy, and in my opinion, it's one of the best movies of all time. It's in my top 5. I've seen all of them dozens of times, but it's been, I'd say, a good 2 years since I've seen A New Hope, so it was really great going back and watching it. But in that time that I haven't seen A New Hope, I think that I forgot how great it was, because going back and watching this, I was just like, oh, what a great scene. Specifically, I was watching the scene where Luke is staring up at the suns on Tatooine, and then I got goosebumps and the hair on my arms started to raise. I was like, oh, what a perfect scene. Just the soundtrack mixed with the cinematography of that scene. That was a classic scene where George Lucas, he does this a lot in all of the Star Wars movies, but it was really great because he kind of conveyed the tone and he managed to speak 1,000 words without actually speaking. You know, there was no dialogue, but yet he was actually speaking so much, you know, just with visuals. And that's something that I've always loved that George Lucas does. So that was great. There is the scene when they're kind of stuck in that garbage chute type thing. And then, of course, all of that tension was just so great. Not only by the monster at the beginning of that scene that almost got Luke, but then, of course, the walls almost crushed them, only to them to be saved by C-3PO, which was great. Everything about that scene was great. George Lucas just built up so much tension. You were like, oh god, this is so intense. And then, you know, they do get rescued, which, you know, predicting, I knew that was going to happen because I've seen it all so many times, but like even then, like I was still watching, I was like, wow, so much tension in this scene. It's just phenomenal. One of my favorite things about this movie, it's not like a particular scene or anything, but it's the banter between C-3PO and R2-D2. I think, you know, by far it's just amazing. Every time I see those two communicating on screen, I'm always laughing. You know, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get a laugh out of C-3PO and R2-D2. In my opinion, based on what I've heard and what I've seen, I think that I'm going to love BB-8 just as much as I love C-3PO and R2-D2, mainly because of the fact that if you read the interviews from J.J. Abrams, he's like, yeah, the cast treated BB-8 like he was an actual fellow cast member. So I'm like, okay, one of the great things about the original trilogy with C-3PO and R2-D2 is they felt like they were actual characters in the story as opposed to just droids that were just kind of there to kind of follow orders or, you know, do all this other stuff. So they were actually felt like they were contributing to the plot, and they actually felt like they had these personalities and that they had this, you know, kind of a heart to them. So it was great, and hopefully BB-8 will give me the same kind of, maybe even some nostalgia with the original C-3PO and R2-D2, and then of course I'll hopefully love him just as much. Now, there is one thing that gets me every single time about A New Hope, and that is the scene where Luke discovers that the stormtroopers murdered his aunt and uncle. Now, this is the only gripe that I will ever have with A New Hope, and that is just moves on like it's nothing, and then he never mentions them through the rest of the movie. So that is one gripe that I will always have with this movie, but it doesn't really ruin the movie, so it's just more or less kind of a nitpick. But at the same time, like every time I watch it, you know, I'll say all this great stuff about it, but I'll be like, you know how his aunt and uncle died and he didn't really seem to give a shit. Like, yeah, he just kind of nonchalantly was like, okay, I'm gonna go be a Jedi now. It's just a little bit frustrating to me. Like, in my opinion, there should have been a little bit more emotion, and they should have kind of lingered on it. Not too long, but they should have lingered on that scene a little bit, and he should have showed a lot more emotion than what he did, and it should have had a little bit more of an impact on him, but it really didn't. So that's the only gripe I have with the film. Otherwise, Star Wars A New Hope is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't watched it recently, and you haven't seen it within like the last year and a half, go back and watch it, because it was such a great experience for me to go back and watch it again. Definitely do it. If you've never seen it, I don't know, why haven't you seen it? Go watch it, and then of course see all of them, and then go see Force Awakens, which will hopefully be just as great as the original trilogy. Alright guys, that wraps up my first episode to Road to the Force Awakens. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and do Empire Strikes Back probably within the next few days, so look out for that. Alright guys, peace.